The new prepay meters have to be installed in each of the 170,000 households. This is the first time the device has been tested on such a scale, either in South Africa or elsewhere in the world. The meters are designed and manufactured by a South African company.
When we started the project, we supplied them with a meter whereby a user will get the free basic water at the beginning of the month, of which they were given 6,000 liters. And after the 6,000 liters is finished, what the meter will do, it will cut off, and the user will be required to buy more credit so that he can have access to water again.
We need to understand that when we went into Soweto on this project, there was a culture of non-payment. And coming up with a project to say, now you need to start paying, it's a completely different approach. Not only the technology, but just the culture to say, as from today, you will now need to start paying for water.
With the prepay meters, the residents now find themselves having to pay for water that was once abundant and practically free. They now have to accept that consumption needs to be limited and that non-payment can result in supply being cut off, without any possible negotiations. So how did the residents react to the installations and the new system?
The Anti-Privatization Forum, first of all, is a collection of community organizations. And our main objectives from the very beginning were to oppose the privatization of public services. When we sat down with Johannesburg Water to get an explanation for the project and we found out what it was about, we were told, and the community was told, that Operation Mnamanzi was a project to replace aging infrastructure, water infrastructure, to lay new pipes and to basically make things better. We were not told at that point that there was going to be an implementation of prepaid water meters. What we were told was everybody will benefit, it's new infrastructure, new pipes will be laid, we'll let less water leakages, and this is what the project is about. It's to conserve and save water and to make Soweto better in terms of its water.
We're not offered a choice. You had to accept a prepaid meter because this is the policy decision that was taken by the city to implement prepaid meters. So there was no choice offered at that point.
Our immediate response was to engage Johannesburg Water. We wanted to find out what was going on. Could we sit down and talk about this and come to some kind of agreement about a proper process? Because nobody knew exactly what the Operation Mnamanzi was about, necessarily.
How much resistance did we get from the crowd? It was just a small group, and it was not social resistance. It was actually political resistance. Okay, so I think we as a water services provider had to look at it from the business and the service delivery context, and the politicians had to address the political aspect.
It had nothing to do necessarily with Operation Mnamanzi. It was because the Anti-Privatization Forum was already by that time considered to be a political organization that government did not like. It's the Anti-Privatization Forum. They are radicals. They're people that are on the other side. We don't like them. We don't want to deal with them. So I think it was politically informed from the beginning.
In July 2006, with backing from NGOs, 5 residents of a Soweto neighborhood sued the city of Johannesburg.
The demands were really about finding the free basic water policy unreasonable because it was insufficient to cover large households, and for prepayment water meters to be declared unlawful and unconstitutional.
Certainly resistance that will take us by surprise, because I don't think the city anticipated a court case out of this. We didn't see it coming.
L'AFD n'a pas été attaqué, il n'y a pas eu de risque d'image. Il y aurait pu y en avoir, on aurait pu apparaître dans les journaux, mais en fait, nous avons été considérés comme ce que nous étions, c'est-à-dire un financier qui appuyait une initiative qui venait de la part de la ville de Johannesburg, qui venait de la part de Johannesburg Water, et non pas une position imposée, en aucun cas d'ailleurs, par un bailleur de fonds.
The first judgment in 2008 ruled in favor of the plaintiffs. The quantity of water being supplied to residents was judged insufficient, and the free pay meter was ruled discriminatory towards the poorest residents.
Judge Soka saw it, and we felt that he very appropriately balanced all the legal questions and came out with a very, very good judgment. So there was widespread jubilation. We were happy, the community was happy, the APF was happy.
One of the first things that happened is obviously political outrage. Nobody would want to be associated with the project that basically discriminates against the poor. So there were reputation issues to be managed around it.
In that same week, we saw the water losses going up because we track water losses on a day-to-day basis. Same week the judgment was made, our water losses were going down. In the same week, then they turned and faced south.
The 3 phases of the judgment lasted over 3 years. The final case even went as far as the country's constitutional court.
The first question is whether do the legislation contemplate the use of prepaid meters? Now, I think there's something to be said for the view that it does. The next question
In October 2009, it was judged that the metering system project was not unconstitutional, as the Constitution did not stipulate the kind of payment system to be used. The Constitutional Court also took into account the modifications Johannesburg Water had made after the first 2 court cases.
They may not be part of a metered full pressure service.
The Constitutional Court judgment was much more conservative than even the Supreme Court of Appeal judgment, which is quite rare in South Africa and in the relationship between the Constitutional Court and the Supreme Court. So we were shocked. We're still in a state of disbelief about it.
So our attitude has been that it vindicates us in terms of an approach. It says we were not being discriminatory. This was a result of a well-thought-through process that was in the interest of the city, and it helps. But it doesn't win us the battle on the ground. That we still have to be able, we have to be prepared to walk hand in hand with our consumers on.
The protests gained a lot of media coverage, and the court cases immediately galvanized residents. Almost half of the installed meters were bypassed.
So this is my prepaid meter, which was taken out because I bought water and for 10 rands it didn't last. This is where I put it.
During this time, while waiting for the trials to end, work on the water supply and sanitation systems stopped in one neighborhood after another. The project was put on hold for 2 years.
We needed to pay contractors in the order of about 90 million rand as a result of having to suspend or cancel contracts as a result of the suspension. And then, of course, the all-important question or message of water conservation has now been lost.
As soon as work began in 2005, a communication strategy was launched in the township.
But if
could a continuation of the process have limited the negative fallout from the court cases? Local elected representatives were a key part of the consultations with residents. The councillors were charged with explaining the city's policy to the citizens and with communicating their grievances to the higher authorities.
Viva 136, viva! Viva! Viva 136, viva! Viva! Hawu siyabonga. Njengoba nazi ukuthi phambilini amabhunu bewasibeke kule ndawo ukuthi ama-dormitory la abantu bazohlala khona bese bayosebenza nabasuka lapho baye emakhaya. Ngeshwa-ke labo bantu akwenzakalanga lokho sila sihleli. Ngaloko-ke amabhunu enza ama-pipe ama-diameter lawa abamancane angithi kungako-ke njalo nje sithola ukuthi ugeleza amanzi ey'tradini ngoba besta lama-pipe lawo. So le nto egcina amanzi zama ukulungisa zona lezo inkinga ezinjengalezo. Kukini-ke manje ukuthi uma igcina amanzi ikhuluma nibabuze imibuzo, nibuze nokuthi le inkinga lezi ezenzeke phambilini bazozilungisa kanjani.
The councillors are going to be appointed by the political party. They're not going to be appointed by the people. So what does that do to their function? Who are they trying to please? Then the second question is, what can the councillors do? What powers do they have? What ability do they have to change things?
Saturday and Sunday, after last months, every day, Saturday and Sunday, ne holiday. And I'm happy to say to I call up at a Pumaran. Ebusuku masilela abantu asazabani bafike lapho bakhiphe lo mpompi or bavala amanzi ngaphandle since sibonakala uvuke kusena awuna amanzi wena.
So ngithi inkinga ezifana nalezi mangabe zikhona with reference numbers ngicela ukuzithatha so that when you invite me again ku public meeting ngisho or wena ungifakazele ukuthi kwathatha isikhathi esingakanani ukuthi icazulule emva kokuthi uyinikele ngakithi. Angazi ukuthi inkinga ikuphi ngoba ngiyaqala ukuzwa ukuthi kunenkinga enjalo.
What was missing in that implementation, which is the fact that you got information, but because we were running in parallel with the actual technical implementation already, even if you could come across problems, you couldn't decide, wait a minute, let's stop on the other side, which is what gave people the sense that we were just ignoring them and going ahead anyway. That was the problem.
I don't believe that we actually spent a lot of time in terms of gaining a common understanding of what this whole issue is all about. It was seen as a technical intervention, and it probably was seen as something that was imposed on the people.
So bengicela ukuthi siphakame sicela futhi ubaba sibaleke.
Baba uNkulunkulu singene ngawe inkosi sizawuphuma ngawe sizivile zonke into ezithethwayo into ebalulekileyo ebomini bethu. Amanzi Thixo abawusomandla engcwele siyawucela ke inkosi nakulo nyaka ukuthi imvula zakho mazine ngokwaneleyo inkosi singabantu zeleki ngelo gama elinamandla likaYesu Kristu inkosi yethu. Amen.
Although the councillors are supposed to speak for the residents, they're often equivocal. And as the work had already begun, the council wasn't really able to adapt the project to accommodate people's opinions, problems, and grievances. No doubt as a result, the residents did not feel involved with the project.